I've had batch brews from cafes and they've been cold. I've had them and they turn bitter, they taste sour, they taste stale. Get it out the door as quickly as you can. So where I see cafes mostly getting it wrong with batch brews is how long they're willing to let that brew just sit there and continue to serve it. The batchy, the batch brew, the percolator, whatever you want to call this filter coffee, it's getting much more popular. We're still seeing cafes not managing it well, not maintaining that taste and how good it can be. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through all my tips on how to get yourself set up, how to maintain good flavor throughout the day, looking at cleanliness and all the pros and cons of serving batch brew in your cafe or maybe just for home. So follow along with me and let me know in the comments, do you love batch brew and is there anything that you're seeing in cafes that they could be doing better to serve you better batch brew? So let's jump into the brew bar and I'll show you how to prepare a batch brew. Got to start with the brewer. This is the Breville Luxe brewer. It's SCA approved and we love it. We have it in our bar. We've recommended it for a while. We've done some other videos on it. We'll put them in the description, but there is a whole bunch of brewers out there. Things to look for is temperature stability. It's size. You need to pick one that's going to suit you. If you're making it at home and you just want to make a couple of cups, don't go and buy a big brewer. But if you're in a busy cafe and you're really thinking to do some volume, you might want to look at one of the bigger systems. But you can also make a brew in a pretty fast amount of time, so you can turn it over, and if you run out you can put a batch brew on for the next customer. They might wait a little bit, but you'll be able to turn that over. So this is just one that's quite simple, easy to use, and we've really enjoyed it in our bar. So quickly, the things you're going to need to be able to prepare your batch brewer: obviously the brewer. You're going to need some paper filters. They'll probably come with the brewer, but I'd look at getting something maybe a little bit better. Something to hold your coffee. While we're weighing out, we're going to follow a recipe, which means we need some scales as well. We're going to need some good coffee. We're going to come back to that, and a single dose grinder. When you're setting up any sort of filter coffee, we really want to be using fresh ground coffee. We don't want to be using pre-ground coffee. I wouldn't even go through this whole process if you plan on using pre-ground coffee. So definitely look at getting yourself a single dose grinder. It doesn't have to be something quite this big. Something like the DF54 would be a great single dose option for at home or even in a cafe if you weren't doing a huge volume. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is just fill up our water canister. For us, we're using a 1:17 ratio, which means I'm going to use 60 grams of coffee to 1 liter of water. So I'll just fill this up. I do want to make sure that I'm using filtered water. So much of the flavor of this coffee is going to come from the water, so you do want to make sure that you're using suitable water for coffee. So much content about water, I won't go into it now, but make sure you're using at least like a Brita filter, if even better if you've got some good high quality coffee filters that you can, coffee water filters that you can use. So we've got our water in there. There's a liter of water. Obviously this one can go up to 12 cups, they say. So we'll pull out a little thing. I'm just using a bit of a cone brewer here. I'm going to grab one of my filter papers, and I will just rinse off this filter paper as well, just to get any of the potential papery tastes that I might get from that filter paper. All right, so that filter paper is now wet and prepared. So the big one here is coffee. The batch brewer is a great way to highlight a delicious coffee. We are running this Guatemalan. It is a filter roast coffee, so it's been roasted in a way that is a little bit lighter. It's going to bring out some of the sweeter flavors of the coffee, more acidity, and it's a really good way that we highlight this particular coffee for our customers. Cafes need to look at this. They need to expand their menus. If you're wanting to expand your menu but you don't want to buy an expensive new coffee machine or more gear, this is a very cost-effective way to get into the specialty market. If you are already a specialty coffee shop and you don't do batch brew, it's a really simple way to start to introduce different coffees onto the menu. You can then go and sell retail off the back of it, and it's very cost-effective. I'm using 60 grams of coffee to 1 liter of water. Now that gets me around 5 to 6 cups of small coffee, which is very cost effective compared to using 22.5 grams for 1 cup of coffee. We find that a lot of long black drinkers do drink it, but a lot of milk coffee drinkers will drink a second coffee for the day. Maybe people don't want to drink so much milk all day and they want to move on to something else, not as heavy as a long black. Filter coffee isn't a long black. It's not the same thing. It is a a lighter, more clean experience. It doesn't have that heavy body, it doesn't have that full mouth coat. It has the strength of caffeine for the brew time, and the exposure to the coffee is drawing out that caffeine. But you're definitely not looking at the same intensity that you get out of a long black. So this is a great introduction way to move over from a long black, but also introduce people to black coffee from milk coffee. All right, so I've got my 60 grams of coffee there, and I would recommend looking for a filter roast. Try to not go for an espresso roast. You might think that you can use the beans from your espresso machine and translate over to the batch brew. You can, but you might not get such a nice experience out of it. It's definitely worth exploring more coffees and doing that. At the moment, we've got 2 filter roasts on, 2 espresso roasts, as well as all of our other blends. So talk to your roaster or come and talk to us about what our options are. If you're a cafe in Australia, we can help you with single origins and other coffees that you might want to do on a batch brew. So check out artisti.com.au and get in touch. But we're going to put our 60 grams through. I'm on a paper filter setting, so if you're doing a pour over or something else that's going through a paper filter, it's quite a reasonably coarse grind there. All right, so that is our 6 grams. You can have a look at that. See, it's quite coarse, rock salt style, coarse grind there. So when we put this in, we just want to put that straight in the middle of the cone. Nice flat bed. And that's just going to sit straight up there. Now there's a little shower screen under here that's going to just manage the water flow and the temperature and everything going onto the bed of coffee. So I'll turn this on. Now notice that this is a thermal carafe. There's no heating plate on this one. If you're looking at different brewers, I don't recommend a heating plate. We actually don't want it to heat for a long amount of time and continue to cook. They say this lasts 4 hours. I wouldn't say it lasts 4 hours. One of the biggest things we're seeing in cafes is that letting their batch brew sit for 4 hours, 6 hours, they'll put it on in the morning, and if they're not testing it and they're not tasting it through the day, and they're not noticing when it starts to taste stale or when it starts to degrade and oxidize. So you want to be testing it, you want to be drinking it through the day, you want to be replenishing it. Like I said, getting it 60 grams a serve for a whole litre of coffee. There may be some wastage in the start to replenish it, but when a customer comes in and orders that batch brew, we want it to be nice and warm. We want it to be a great experience for them, and we don't want to leave it for longer than really maximum 2.5 hours. So that's going to come down to the brewer that you use, the coffee that you're using. The best thing you can do in any situation in making coffee is taste it and make sure that it is the quality product that you want to put out. So with that carafe in there, that's going to allow the coffee to go through, and that will just do its thing. Now, you don't need me to put that brew on. I don't need to be the one to make that. You could have a young kid that does a startup to put all that through, just have a recipe and they follow the steps. And that's the part that we want to bring home for these particular setups. They're great for home because if you're a home black coffee drinker, that is such an easy thing to do in your home. And there's some cool settings on some of them. You can actually set timers on them to start brewing for you. But then in a cafe setting, we're trying to simplify it. We're trying to take the pressure off the coffee machine. We want to free up the coffee machine for espresso. It's an espresso machine. We don't want to drain all the water for cups of teas and then we're also trying to do lots of black coffee through it. This will actually help your baristas. You can take an order from someone and they can order a batch brew, pull it out, pour it, send it on its way. Don't wait and put it in line and have someone order a batch brew and wait 20 minutes after all of the milk coffees that go out. Get it out the door as quickly as you can. You can have that carafe on the bench, and once customers learn how fast they can get that particular coffee, that will be a great reason they come back to your cafes. Because if you are putting them in line with everyone else, it's going to slow you down, plus it's also going to not be as quick and not as great an experience for the customer. So batch brews are amazing for speed, they're amazing for consistency. So if we're managing our coffee and it's tasting good, we should be able to get the same brew every day and get a really consistent coffee, because that is what customers are looking for. They're looking for consistency. So where I see cafes mostly getting it wrong with batch brews is how long they're willing to let that brew just sit there and continue to serve it. I've had batch brews from cafes and they've been cold. I've had them and they turn bitter, they taste sour, they taste stale. It's not a great experience. So if you're a barista on a machine, you want to make sure that your espresso is tasting good, you're following your recipes, you're watching your shot times, and you would never let an espresso sit on the bench for like more than a minute if you really know what you're doing. Same as a batch brew, we want to make sure that our black coffees are tasting good and we're testing that. It's, like I said, it's a very low cost item to replenish that. And the other thing is cleanliness. Again, with an espresso machine, we want to make sure that we're putting that coffee cleaner through every single day in a cafe setting or regularly at home. With a batch brew, it's the same. You can use the Cafetto that you put through your machine to clean your batch brew carafe. And we want to make sure we're doing that, because that coffee oils that are staining the inside of that carafe, they do build up and they do add a negative taste to the coffee. So 1 scoop of Cafetto, some boiling coffee, and give it a swirl. You'll be amazed at how clean your carafe will come up. So that's the trick to do. If you have a batch brew, go to work tomorrow, clean your batch brew, and make sure that you set a timer for how regular you will replenish your batch brews. Even something like this, a little card that your staff can write down what time it was made, who made that, what coffee it's on, and you could even just attach that to the brewer so that you know what time that was on. If you're an owner, this is something you want to manage. If you're a barista, you want to make sure that it's being replenished and it's tasting as good as it can. So something like a little card like this is a really helpful tool for your staff to manage that. This also means that any staff member going to grab that carafe and pour that for a customer can also tell what coffee's in it and know what time it was prepared. So they're serving the best thing they can, and they can help educate the customer on exactly what they're drinking. So overall for me, if you're a specialty coffee shop and you're not serving batch brew, this is a huge missed opportunity. If you are serving one, make sure you're doing it well. Make sure you're cleaning your device and replenishing it throughout the day. But if you're not serving batch brew, it's a missed opportunity to introduce a new product to your menu, introduce new customers into your cafe, and expand your horizon around coffee. You'll be amazed at what your staff will learn about coffee, what your customers can, and the flexibility that you'll get out of being able to offer a different form of coffee to your customers. So there's a huge market out there looking for it, and you want to be in on that. If you don't have all this gear, go to artisti.com.au and all of this is available. There's a huge range of great coffees there for you to choose from. You got brewers, paper filters, everything you'll need. Thanks for watching the video. If you've got any more advice or things you see cafes doing that you'd love them to fix, let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.